Hey guys, Jeff here, and today we are looking at another plarn craft. Now this one's really special for me because I first learned about this technique from an art teacher that I teach with. She had a large mat, probably 4 feet by 7 feet, hanging on the wall behind her desk, and I noticed that it was made out of plastic bags made out of plarn. And she explained to me that she actually saw women in South Africa making these and then using these to sit on, to sleep on. And so she actually told me what little she could about it. And so I've actually kind of done some experiments to find out what works better. I will be showing you the loom by the end of the video, but it's just easier to tell you about what I went through first. So what she had shown me had braided plastic bags, and it had these strips. I think they were yarn. She told me that sometimes they unwove like vinyl burlap kind of bags, but I decided I had to experiment. I had to try things to find out how this went. So first off, I started with this little mat, and just like the other things that I've been doing, I am doing kind of a placemat size just so I can get a feel for something. But any of these, especially the weaving ones, you could scale them up just depending on your loom and your materials. So I decided just to use yarn to make things simple to start with. I'm not sure how I like the bright red. It was what I had handy. And so I just went through and I tried a couple different things. I started with just my standard plarn. You guys have seen me talk about how I make this. Got a short, I don't know if I can link a short, but if so, I'll link it up there, where I make it, and the pieces of plastic bags are maybe about that wide. And I started by just using that, just because I wanted to see, you know, something quick and easy. And I mean, it's a mat, but it's very squishy, and just like the peg loom, it doesn't have a whole lot of body. So I thought, what's the easiest way to step up from there? And that was to do the jumbo plarn, as I did in my peg loom, where instead of using strips of plastic that wide, basically doubled them. And whereas this is really soft, this has a little more body to it. It's still not what I would think of as substantial, but it definitely has more body. It's probably going to be a little more insulative. But then I decided to do what the teacher told me she saw. I braided, and I took the standard plastic bags. I just did a standard 3 braid, just like you learn to do with friendship bracelets and braiding hair. And it was a little bit of a learning curve, because it turns out when you do that braid, and I'll talk about that more when we get to the other one, but it's actually kind of flat. It's got a wide side and narrow side, and if you're not careful, you can kind of see it down through here. If you're not careful, it gets twisted up, and it doesn't really look great. And of course, I said, well, if this is a little more substantial as a regular braid over just plain plarn, what if we do the jumbo? And so I did the jumbo, and I feel like the jumbo as a braid actually magnifies those differences, the inconsistencies, and I wasn't entirely sure, wasn't set on it. So of course I asked my family, my wife, both my girls, and it turns out everyone preferred just the standard braid, which I was happy with. I'm not having to make specialty plarn for this, but I can just braid this up. So my next question was, okay, cool, I know which I like, but I don't like having to use something other than plarn. So I set things up using plarn for the, so let's see, it's actually woven kind of in this direction. So that would be the weft? Yeah, the weft. So I used plarn for the weft, and I decided to try to use a color that I would incorporate all the way through. And then I'm using the braids for the warp. That's backwards. This is warp, this is weft. So this is the warp, but then the braiding is actually used for the weft. Now, it is hard to braid up enough of this all at once to actually make a mat, even this size. There's something really handy on the loom that helps with that. I will show you that when we get to the loom in a moment. One of the advantages that the braiding has is that with the other techniques, you had really harsh transitions. I mean, you can change colors. You could even change colors in the middle if you wanted to, but you're going to go from one color to the other. I really liked that with the braiding, I was able to, especially if you look down here, I was able to change one of the strands to brown and then two of the strands to brown, so I finally switched all of them to brown. So that way I could get a gradual transition if I wanted. Now, you can see right up in here, it's entirely possible to get a pretty stark transition if you want to, but this gives more design possibilities. One of the other things to say with this is that it definitely took, there was a learning curve to these edges. You can probably see there's these looped edges along here on both sides, and you can probably tell that at the beginning I started off really widely looped out there, but then as I went I kind of settled into a rhythm. So this is all I've done as far as the experiment so far, is just the two of these. And so I would say that for only doing two, I'm happy with the consistency I was able to get. Obviously, if I did more of these, I hope I would get better. Yeah, I mean, there's some gaps in there and whatnot, but I mean, I'm still happy with that. It's got some real body to it. I could see making a bigger one as like a doormat, or if you wanted something like this in front of your kitchen sink, something to put your pet's food bowls on. There's a lot of possibilities. But yeah, I like this. I'm probably going to use this one. This sampler, it's going to be stored for posterity for anyone I ever have these conversations with again. But this, it makes me happy. So since we've gone through the examples of what we've actually gotten there, let's get over to actually see the loom itself. So one of the features going for this loom is the fact that it breaks down really small. I've got it spread out so you can see the parts, but when it came to transporting this from school, because my art teacher friend has several of these at school, they were actually made by the shop class, but a broken down loom doesn't take up a lot of space, which is really handy. All right, so the loom is made up of 5 parts. These two are feet. If I had to guess, because I didn't make it myself, that's probably like a 2x4, and in the middle of it, you've got a mortise on the top. Then we've got, that's smaller than a 2x4. Let's call that I don't know. It's definitely smaller than a 2x4. It's got a tenon on each end. That way you can slot this in here. And now we've got some legs. The last part is kind of the business part of the loom. So we've got this box here, pretty beefy, screwed together. Each of the short sides has another mortise to match the top of the legs. And then we just have a series of slots cut across here. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. 23 slots cut on both sides so that way they match up. And I think that this was just based on the size of the mat that the teacher had. I'm going to pause this so I can actually construct the top, and then I'll show you how we actually get to weaving. Now, I did realize that there's actually a few more things that I forgot to mention here. Well, you've got the full width of the loom, how many warps you put in is going to determine how wide your piece is. I just wanted to demonstrate a quick little piece, so I've just got, what I have, 5. I'm just going to do 6. I also realized I needed to show you how we were doing this. So what I've done, and my teacher friend said that she just used like C or D size batteries in order to weight the ends of this. I wanted something a little more elegant, plus I didn't have that many batteries around, so I just went out, cut some chunks off of a tree. That way I could tie my warp to each end, and you do have to have it to each end. So right now I've only got one end right there, and you got to make your warp a little bit more than twice as long as your piece is going to be. The way that I've been tying it on is I've been doing what's called a constrictor knot. So I go with my loose end, I go around like that, I come back over as a cross, come over my long end, and then I try to go through this part of the cross right here. Just gotta lift those legs up. That way I can pull that through. And of course, if I was going to do this better, I could actually make this more like a spool, make it easier to tie on. Now, I started off just doing that, but doing longer pieces, they dangle way too long and actually working it gets difficult. So what I do is I just try to wrap them up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I just pick a number, and then after I've gone around enough, I do a half hitch. So I just kind of make a loop like that, go on there, so that way, pull it tight. That way it kind of keeps my string organized, and so I still need to do that on this side. So repeat that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the half hitch. Now by shortening it up like that makes this next part easier, because what you want to do is you want to find the middle of the string and have that right here in the middle, so that way you have approximately the same amount of warp on both sides. Let's try to get you centered a little bit better here. Now the other thing that I liked about this is I've wondered about rag rugs, and this seemed like a really good candidate, so I actually cut up a t-shirt that was in my scrap bin, so that way I could show you how we actually do this. I just made some t-shirt yarn, sometimes called tarn. Alright, so all you do is you lay your weft material across, and I'd probably try to tuck the tail in here just to make it look a little bit nicer. But obviously this is just a test piece. And then all you do is you're going to cross these two, the two ends of your warp. Now, I don't think it really matters which way you go, but I tried to stay consistent, and I think you can see that in here that they all kind of angle the same way, and I achieved that by always taking, and this is really fiddly in the first one, so it helps to kind of pinch here. I take the front over to the back, I bring the back around, so notice that we've got kind of a counterclockwise thing going on. And all we're doing right now is we're making a loop around our weft material. That one got out of place. Don't worry about tightening anything. I do know that she used the batteries because they gave some more weight. And I found that, yeah, it would be nice if I had a little bit more weight on these, but I solved that just by pulling them snug periodically. And obviously, wider pieces, you have more of these, it's going to take a little bit more time. This is my last one, so I'm going to make sure that my tail is kind of stuck back, so I have just a little bit of that fold like we talked about before. Stick that in there. Again, always trying to stay consistent. Now, when I get a little bit further down, I would then go through and I would snug each of these up. I would also make sure that they're kind of straight, because you can see you can get a little out of place here. So once you've done that, fold over. So now we've got a fresh one in here. And I always like to start from the end where the fold is. So since I came up from here, I will go through the exact same process. This is why we like those strands short, because they tangle up a little bit less. And you can see already I got my fold going a little too far, so I can adjust that. Nothing's too tight. Exact same process that we already did. Straighten things out as necessary. Pull and snug as necessary. As you can see, it's really straightforward. Nothing too complicated to it. Like any craft, it takes some practice in order to get the feel for it, to get consistent, to make a nice, neat product. But that's why it's called a craft. So now I would then come through, kind of pull on these, try to get things nice and straight. I always seem to tuck in over here, so I need to slide things that way a little bit. And once I've done that, flip over again. And this is where now I would start at this end, since I'm curving up from here, but still I take the front, come back, and you just do a lot of this. Now, I mentioned that the loom had a feature that made it really easy to do the braiding of that weft material as you go along. And for me, these notches were actually the perfect size. So as I was working on braiding, I'd get to the end. I think I had some of my braid around. But when I got to the end, it would hang out. There we are. And I could just tuck in here, come where you can see it, tuck in here, and then braid. And then when I needed to pull up some length, I could tuck it across there, and I could zigzag back and forth. And it had a pretty good hold where I could braid on it, and I could just let that hang down, keep going with the braiding, roll it up onto the ball, keep going. When I ran out of braid, I could tuck in there. So the last thing that you need to know then is, how do we finish this? Because everything so far is pretty easy. What is there to finish it? Well, again, it is pretty straightforward. Again, I like to try to pull things tight just to eliminate gaps. But when you get to the end, obviously this would be the end here, but when you get to the end, all you're going to do is you're going to tie a knot. And I just, again, I start at one end and I try to make them the same all the way through. And I just make a square knot. So I go through like that, and I pull it tight. Then I'm going to stick the front one to the back. I'm going to bring the back one to the front, but it's going to go around first. Pull it tight, and you've got a knot. Again, looking to my finished one, you can see there's some knots along the end there. So you can tell which end you start at, because the starting end's smooth. The finished end has those knots on it. So there we go. That is the South African style loom for making braided mats, braided plarn mats. Although I gotta say, it looks like it's pretty promising with some t-shirt material as well. I'm probably gonna unknot this and spend a little bit more time with it, just so I can show her as far as an example. And I mean, you could use t-shirt material. I've tried making rag rugs from sheets before, and I bet sheets would work great in here. So yeah, anyways, more experimenting that I want to do. But yes, plastic bag rugs, mats, table placemats, there's my word, placemats, whatever you want from a very simple to make loom. If you know anybody who does some woodworking, they've got some simple power tools so they can put these things together pretty quick and easy. And you can start making yourself some placemats. All right, if you've seen this before and you have any more information, any details that could help me, please let me know in the comments down below. I'm not done with my plarn experiments. I've still got more crafts that I'd like to try with plastic bag yarn. And I hope you guys keep coming back for it. Remember, there is a playlist that's probably popping up right about now. Feel free to check that out if you have not seen my other plastic bag crafts. And with that, I'll talk to you all later.